Good evening, everyone. It's me, Drive Ghost, and the very next episode of Death Battle, premiering in 2025 as their very first 2025 episode, will be Asura vs. Kratos, two characters I know a fair bit about in terms of scaling, with a little help from some research for this video, and so I decided to make my own prediction for Death Battle. So, let's get into it. First, I'd like to give my updated opinion on Death Battle because it has changed, and I'll keep it brief. So, to keep it brief, my opinions on Death Battle have softened recently, at least since my last video about Bardock versus Omni-Man, which, pissed me off, but after watching Fall Guys vs. Among Us, after having not watched Death Battle ever since that video, and I wasn't really watching it much up to that point anyway, but I regained appreciation for the series as I loved this episode, even though I thought I wouldn't. Particularly the animation. This is partially why I'm making this video, because I'm getting back into Death Battle, so I figured now was a better time than ever since this is an episode that I'm kinda excited for. So let's first discuss power and attack potency. Asura is the definition of a powerhouse. And in terms of physical abilities, he outclasses most, if not all, of Kratos' feats, especially in terms of sheer power. Asura, in his battle with Ryzen, destroyed his giant form, which was larger than the Earth, using his ability to build up energy through punches and release it in a large burst. So it was not one punch like some people claim. It took multiple punches, it's just that he released all of it with a single one. It's basically like the equivalent of doing a couple thousand punches in one go. And even more impressively, in his... Sorry about that pause, I lost my place in the little script here. And even more impressively, in his fight with Chakravartin, he destroys planets, stars, and even an attack that was seemingly larger than galaxies. Excluding any lore implication stuff, this is well beyond any feat that Kratos has, excluding any hacks abilities he might have with some of his weapons. Now, speed is a much different can of world serpents when we're factoring in Greek lore and what we see in the series, which has some pretty crazy implications. While Asura is massively faster than light in his battle against Chakravartin, the Light of Apollo in God of War was able to light up the underworld, which is infinite in size. At least from what I've found researching online. Sorry about that, there was an error with my computer and I had to stop recording, gonna try and stitch it together or something. Given Helios is the swiftest god in most versions of Greek mythology and stuff, it would stand to reason his speed is comparable to that of Apollo's light. Kratos was able to react to Apollo's light in God of War 3, albeit not immediately. And if we were to use this, Kratos would scale to Hermes having immeasurable speed. But if we would consider this feat to be based in assumptions too much, then I'd say Asura is faster, because to my knowledge Kratos doesn't have any speed feats on the level of Asura's. Durability is another tricky one, but on some technicalities and some scaling, I think we can give it to Kratos, definitively. Asura is certainly durable, being able to fly through planets and endure being stabbed with a blade that went through the Earth, but Kratos was able to survive hits from an enraged Thor who moments prior hit Jormungandr hard enough to splinter the World Tree and send it into the past. This was also Kratos holding back, at least to an extent, as he had no intent to kill Thor, while Thor wasn't holding back at all, because he was pissed off over Kratos being near Thrud and bringing Ragnarok and all that. However, I don't necessarily think that Kratos himself scales to that feat, as it's implied the Leviathan axe is what lets him match the power of Mjolnir, not his own base power. Asura also has the downside of his arms and transformations being broken off him pretty easily. And whether it's young or old Kratos, I say he takes skill, being a highly trained Spartan warrior who only grows more skilled and experienced as the series goes on. Old Kratos especially has the advantage of being able to harness and control his rage, while Asura rarely remains in control of his own. This gives Kratos a level of discipline and control that Asura could hardly dream of. Kratos has also fought the literal god of war, who, needless to say, would be an extremely skilled being. While few of Asura's enemies seem to have great skill, relying more on power and technology. Granted, most of Kratos' do as well, but considering he can fight people like Ares and Odin, who are definitely pretty smart cookies in combat, I would say that in terms of fighting their respective opponents, Kratos has fought far more skilled deities. This is where the fun begins. Time for hacks. As mentioned before, Asura has the ability to build up energy through his punches and blasts, leading up to a burst of energy to destroy his opponents. He can also absorb energy-based attacks and achieve transformations, with his Asura the Destructor form being achieved through absorbing a gigantic blast. He can also absorb... No, fuck. In some of these forms, Asura can also fly. Kratos has a variety of hacks, but it's tricky to figure out what he should have, as he never has all of them at once, since most of his abilities or powers are tied to powers or weapons that he no longer has. If we stick to just his Norse saga powers, he has plenty, being able to slow down time, regenerate, manipulate wind, ice, and fire via his main three weapons, and forces enemies to take additional damage via the Bifrost status effect that he can inflict. Now let's go over some notable weaknesses. One weakness of Asura is his lack of regeneration compared to Kratos, though he can power through a ton of damage, so it's not really a big weakness. A bigger weakness is his strongest transformations requiring outside interference to achieve, like him absorbing that massive blast, or a transformation he gained through the help of his daughter and others. So his best forms can't be achieved on his own. Kratos also has notable weaknesses, such as being easily damaged when he's restraining himself like in the Norse saga, and his Spartan Rage abilities being limited to a short period of time, meaning his absolute max power, or his transformations if you want to say, have a limited period of time, whereas Asura's don't to that extent. His at least lasts longer. Kratos is also much more limited at range compared to Asura, who can rapidly fire long-range blasts. But given Kratos' upgraded shield can endure attacks from Thor and Odin, I'd say he can at least block those blasts, at least his, casual ones. So, who would win? Well, this is definitely a tough fight to figure out, and Death Battle definitely has their work cut out for them with this one. Both characters are busted and have interesting abilities and hacks. Their scaling is also difficult to pin down at times. Personally, I think Kratos has the most advantages, even if he doesn't take speed, if you want to throw out that whole thing I mentioned, because it goes off a lot of assumptions. I say he takes it due to his greater skill, his better hacks, and more hacks on top of that, and the fact recording space got limited again, so the recording stopped and I have to do another one. I swear I hate that this computer has such limited space on it, but continuing on. Asura, while he does have a lot of really good attack potency feats, he's never shown attack potency that could bypass Kratos' durability, scaling to Thor, splintering the world tree. And speaking of which, if the Leviathan Axe really can match Mjolnir when Thor isn't holding back, as we see, that would imply that at full power, Kratos can also accomplish splintering the world tree, specifically using the Leviathan Axe, obviously probably not with the Blades of Chaos or the Draupnir Spear. Personally, I give this to Kratos, but I can definitely see there being plenty of room for debate. So, if you want to debate in the comments, go ahead, correct me on anything I might be getting wrong, and post your own predictions for how you think the battle is going to go. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.